So this is just a short explanation of how I use my SmartBoard in my classroom. My SmartBoard pretty much replaces the old overhead transparency projector. What I use it for most often is ordinary presentations, the kind of thing that you would also use PowerPoint for. I tend to use Smart Notebook for it. I find it has some advantages and some disadvantages. You can see that I've got an explanation from one of my lectures about demand. This is from my AP class. What I would do with this actually is I would start out, and I don't know why I didn't, with a shade in place so that they're only seeing part of the slide to begin with. When they see this part of the slide, what they're able to do then, what I'm able to do with them then, is to talk about the demand schedule and then, of course, take out the slide and show them what it looks like as the demand curve. Both of these illustrations came from their advanced placement textbook, and hopefully they'll go back and read the AP textbook. They haven't already done it, and they'll be able to see that the illustrations match up between what we talked about in class and what they're supposed to be doing with the textbook. But the really cool thing here is that I can draw on the Smart Notebook, and the ink stays. It's one of the advantages of the Smart Notebook software over PowerPoint is the ink will remain. So I can draw in a new demand curve. I can show them how I want them to label things. And I can move on to the next example. I told you earlier that you can use this in the manner that you would use PowerPoint, but there are some pluses and some minuses to both. The big advantage to Smart Notebook is that it retains the ink. PowerPoint's a little more elegant. It's got better animation. For example, here in the Smart Notebook, in order to make just one part of this page disappear, well, now it's not letting me do that. As you can see, we've got some issues here. Yeah, I had to get rid of the pen in order to click. And I had to put a square over it and make it disappear. And of course, there are better ways to do that in PowerPoint. Notebook's not nearly as elegant, but it retains the ink. So if I go back one page, my drawing or the thing that I highlighted is still there. If I did this in PowerPoint, the ink layer would disappear as soon as I moved on to the next page, and I would have to redraw the graph. Number two way I use this is in explaining homework. I can use the PC version of the Smart Notebook software to create an exact copy of the homework assignment, assuming I have the homework assignment as a PDF or other printable document. And what you're about to see comes from Macroeconomics, Student Activities, published by the National Council on Economic Education. And it's a lesson on the equation of exchange. For those of you who've taken macroeconomics, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the equation here, of course, is MV equals PQ. MV equals P. If I weren't doing this with the mouse, it would be a lot more elegant. That's the equation of exchange. So in order to find the information that you need here for 1989, the V and the P, well, a student doing this for the first time might be a little confused, so we can talk about how you find those two numbers. You can find the P from the PQ here. So you know that P times Q has to equal this number. You have Q, you have PQ. Obviously, all you have to do is take PQ divided by Q, you get P. Once you have P, well, MV equals PQ. Now all you have to do is solve for V. It's a simple mathematical equation. You can show the kids how you get from one place to another. Another way that I use this, and I use this very frequently to do this, to break down reading or sample test questions. I can take a page of reading, I can turn it into a PDF using a scanner, and I can use this to highlight and to annotate. I use it very frequently when we're talking about sample questions, especially as we're getting ready for the multiple choice portion of the advanced placement test. So if I were doing this with students, what I would do is I would have them come up, highlight the things that they think are important in the question. For example, we're going to be looking for monetary and fiscal policy accommodations, and we're also going to be looking for a decrease in aggregate demand, and it's in the short run. And then we can use the information and start eliminating answers. For example, we want to decrease aggregate demand in the short run. Well, we know that changes in government spending, decreases in government spending will decrease aggregate demand, so we can automatically get rid of B. We can get rid of C. And I can show them how to use process of elimination to go after the things that are going to be the most likely answers. For the question up here, I'll probably have somebody ask somebody what's going to be the most important thing to know, and hopefully they're going to identify crowding out as something they need to understand, and they need to understand that we're talking about government deficits and actions by the Federal Reserve. And of course, the Federal Reserve can't change tax rates. They can only change the discount rate, the reserve requirement, or buy bonds. So we can eliminate several of our options and move forward from there. It's a good way of showing techniques. Finally, I can use this for student activities, and one of the ones that I find kind of fun, they love to play with the board, is the vortex activity. What I have here is a vortex activity that deals with the factors of production, the difference between capital and land. Where do these different items belong? If a student takes, just a second here, get back to selection here. If a student grabs iron ore and puts it into land, it disappears because the answer is correct. But if they take machinery, which is an example of capital, and try to drag it into land, it spits it back out. So they can then drag machinery over to the capital side. They get verification of a correct answer, and they love playing with it. Sometimes they'll drag things into the incorrect place just because they like to see it spin, but it's fun. It's one way to get student participation, and they do love to play with the board. So those are some of the things that I do with my SmartBoard on a regular basis.